Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for joining us for this session. So, as people are still rolling in, feel free to say hi in the chat and let us know where you're tuning from. We would love to see where you all are joining from. And as Tarra just say, if you're having a watch party at your company or with friends, let us know. So we will start just in a couple of minutes while we are waiting for a few more folks to arrive. So grab a drink or your evening snack, settle in, and we will kick things off shortly. We have Melbourne just join us. Vietnam, India, Finland. Oh, wow. Hello, Anita. I guess what else we would like to know from our attendees, where they join from, and in Wellington, Rachel was asking us what's our favorite music.
Oh, I was going to ask something specific like we weren't sure, have people already started their own design patterns or are they like completely fresh at it? So maybe like on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being no clue, to 5 expert, and I'm going to ask you mean questions at the end. What's your experience with design patterns? Go. Put it in the chat, 1 to 5.
Love this.
And there's no response.
No, that's fine. Oh, there is a 3. Okay. There is a 3.
Good medium.
Mm-hmm.
1, 3.
Zero. Here to learn. I like the honesty.
Oh, I like soft 3. That's like 2.6.
Well, if I was one of the attendees, I would say 4.5. I'm gonna be mean.
Ooh.
Wouldn't say 5. It's too pretentious.
Well, then we would ask mean questions back, like, did you do it properly? What we see a lot of people just like take a design and then like update the Figma just for themselves. And then it goes on to the next team and they update it just for themselves. And so everyone is just like iterating on it. They're like, it's a pattern. I'm like, is it? Is it?
I saw that too. Okay, we are at 57. Just 1 more minute, then we start. A pattern of snowflakes. Oh, I lost my screen. Likely we haven't started. I can find my screen again. No.
We can see your screen.
Yeah, on my side I can.
Wow.
What is it? Oh, that's the beauty of Be Live. Oh, I found it. Yeah, I'm back. Okay, time to start then. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again for joining us today. So before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are on. I will now read the acknowledgement of the country. So I'd like to beginning by acknowledge the traditional custodia of the many lands we are joining from today. I'm speaking from you, from the land of the Camerigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respect to the elder past and present. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Straits Islanders people joining us today. So, for who doesn't know me, my name is Pierluigi Russo, and I'm a design manager at Service New South Wales, and I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I started out studying car design and computer science, which shaped the way I think about creativity, system, and user experience. Over the past 15 years, I've worked across startups, scale-ups, and government, leading cross-functional team and helping build digital product used by millions. I've worn hats in engineering, product, and design, and I love working at the intersection of those disciplines to create works that is meaningful, inclusive, and practical. So outside of work, I'm a community leader for Friends of Figma here in Sydney, where I help run local events. And I'm passionate about creating space where designer, product manager, engineers, and anyone who cares about building great products can come together, share ideas, and grow. So I'm also the creator of the Friends of Figma World Tour, which started as a small spark in my head and turned in something much bigger. But that's only thanks to the incredible support from all the Friends Figma chapter leaders around the world. I saw we have Rachel from Wellington in the chat, and also Cherry from Hanoi. And if anyone else is here, please just drop a message in this chat. So if you're curious about how it all started, I wrote a short letter that is published on the About page of our official website, which is friendsofFigmaWorld2.com. I will share a QR code later so you guys can have a look at it. And today I'm thrilled to be hosting the opening session of the FOF World Tour with you today. And this is actually our second session, it's not the first one, but you got my point. But before we do that, I actually just saw Simon that dropped a message in the chat, and I would like him to introduce himself because he's also my co-organizer for Sydney. So while he's the FOF lead for Perth, he co-organized with me in Sydney. And I'm not sure if Prit is here, he's the leader from Melbourne, and I co-organize with him there as well. So Simon, please make a quick intro.
Thanks, Pierluigi. Yes, as Pierluigi mentioned, even though I'm based in Perth, I do help out with the Sydney Friends of Figma event. I'm a design manager at Atlassian, so very excited to see Tarra and Richard presenting today. In a few hours, we'll be running a Perth session. So if you're still continuing on the world tour, I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Simon. Please stay with us. You don't need to turn your camera off. You're part of the family. So enough about me. So what is Friends of Figma World Tour? So it's a 24-hour global online conference created by the Friends of Figma community, empowered by local chapters around the world. From Sydney to San Francisco, the event follows the sun as each of the Friends of Figma group take the stage for 1 hour. So it's a continuous stream of community-led talks, panel, and creativity, and challenges for each local design scene. Every session is independently curated, showcasing not just the design thinking, but the people and perspective that make each region unique. And this is not just this isn't just a conference; it's a global celebration for design, creativity, and community. And it's entirely led by volunteers. So our goal is to celebrate the richness and diversity of our global community while making this session accessible to anyone, anywhere. And it's a powerful reminder of what we can do together. Now, our speakers today are Tarra and Richard, respectively the head of design and lead product designer at Atlassian. Tarra, sorry if I butcher your surname, Tarra van Amerongen leads navigation and platform experience. She's built high-performing design team across Sydney and has championed design at places like Combank, Fjord, BCGDB, Us2, and now at Atlassian. And then Richard Sneesby leads global navigation. With a background in graphic design and system thinking, he bridges individual product needs with the Atlassian global experience, creating flexible, consistent design at scale. But before we dive in, let me open up the Q&A so you can all start dropping your question in, and make sure to upvote the ones that you're most curious about, because we have got a little surprise in store for one of you. So ask away, vote wisely, stay in tune. Now, thank you so much for being here today, and we are so excited to have you, Tarra and Richard.
Cool, thanks for that intro. So, hi friends of Figma, I'm Tarra. As I was already introduced, I'm here with Richard, and we're going to take you through taking your design patterns from zero to hero. So this chat is really about understanding why they're important, diving into some details. And even though at Atlassian we have a really robust design system, we had never really built a truly global pattern before. We just had like these local team libraries, and it was a really big learning curve for us. So we thought it'd be great to share our tales of drama and scars and triumph to get there. So we're going to share some basics about the pattern, who it serves, and Rich is going to nerd out in Figma and show you some details, which will be really cool. But I'll hand it over to Rich to just introduce himself, where he's from, how long he's been at Atlassian, his most favorite memorable design moment, and why he's joined design.
Thanks, Tarra. Yeah, so on the other side of the world from Tarra at the moment, based in Newcastle. Yeah, I'm Rich, and so I've been at Atlassian for about 3.5 years, but I think in design for about a lot longer, since 2005. Mostly working overseas in Norway. Lived there for 11 years. But I started off in packaging design, and soon got the taste for Flash programming. So does anyone remember Flash? It was like the 60s for nerdy designer types. You could literally get high off playing with that stuff. But it's it was a great tool. Poor Steve killed it. And I love design because it's one of the very few jobs where you can actually use it as a kind of like a secret disguise to go into whatever world you're curious about. So much of our world is designed that you can literally drive your career forward with curiosity. Tarra.
Cool. And so I'm Tarra. I'm based in Sydney, but unfortunately or fortunately today I'm dialing in from Vancouver, Canada. I'm here with my family visiting my parents. So it's 12:11 a.m. It's the best time to be in a hotel business center dialing into the globe and talking about design. I've been at Atlassian for 4 years. I think the whole time I've been working with Rich. And one of my most memorable design projects was I was working for a drinks and dairy company where we were redesigning how stores would order their supplies in this end-to-end delivery process. And as part of the ethnography, I joined the milk delivery at 3 a.m. to join the driver's truck and watch them deliver milk to cafes all around Sydney to get those really important insights for our redesign. And one of the reasons I really love design is it legitimizes the irrationality and that emotional nature of humans. And also from an ethical perspective, it really helps us just invest money in things people actually want, which is really cool. So that's kind of what does it for me. All right, so first, a bit of context. So if you're not from Australia, which we see from the chat, a lot of people are not, you may not be familiar with Atlassian, but we are the makers of Trello, Jira, Confluence, Loom, lots of work management tools for companies that have their teams working productively together. And we work in the B2B software as a service market and have about 300,000 companies as customers in sectors everywhere from medicine to disaster response or pizza delivery. And our mission is to help unleash the potential of every team. And we joke that there's 2 planets with our software on them because NASA is also a large customer of ours. It takes a lot of people to power this. We've got over 12,000 Atlassians in 13 different countries, and design is really integral to how we work in our R&D teams. So we have over 500 designers in product and content design, and they partner with product and engineering. And then we also have a strong team of researchers and data science. And of course, they help us know which direction to take, and also if what we're building is really hitting the mark. So today we're going to be talking to you about design patterns and a case study that we've built here at Atlassian. So what are they? What are patterns? Well, they're a typical solution to a commonly occurring problem. So if we have a similar solution across multiple products, well, then we really believe it should exist as a pattern if it's duplicated. And it should be at platform level so that it's really consistent and just efficient to use as an organization. And if you think about it, patterns sit between that ultra consistent design system and those bespoke in-product experiences just in between. So they really give flexibility and cohesion at the same time. So some examples like we'll see at Atlassian that are duplicated are like onboarding flows or table or list views, preview panels, or our create experience. These appear in lots of different places and throughout our products. And so customers come across them frequently. So at Atlassian, probably like your organization, we're looking at patterns because they support our design strategy. We want coherent, cohesive experiences that look like they've been designed by one hand. And that's really harder said than done when there's so many designers that work on our products. And even for me as a leader, it's almost impossible to know all the experiences that are being evolved daily and make sure they all really feel seamless and flow for our customers well. So our starting point for this project we're sharing with you today is a bit of a result of our company history. Atlassian had 2 decades of really high growth and lots of product teams that ran with high autonomy. So they moved at pace and they shipped lots of features quickly to market, but that high autonomy and growth had a bit of a downside. We've got a lot of feature sprawl. Teams just kept adding more and more, responding to customer demands, and teams would ship really quickly and not always align with other teams. And because we were having a lot of high growth, they would ship an MVP and just wouldn't come back to it later to improve it. And we were kind of already on to the next shiny thing. So we didn't spend time to simplify or modernize our experiences. And what that meant was we had wild inconsistency across the products. And that was no more apparent than in our global navigation. So if you have a look, our global navigation is made up of two parts, both the top bar and the sidebar. And this was basically our starting point to redesigning the navigation. We wanted to harmonize these and meet our mission of consistency and cohesion and look like it came from the same hand. And this next slide shows what that inconsistency looked like. You can see some sidebars, some screenshots where we had different products having different interactions, terminology, styling, and functionality. And they would show similar-ish things on the screen, but they would look and behave differently in each product, which was really confusing for our users. And also, we just had a lot of users telling us they couldn't find and resume their work, which is kind of critical if you're a work management product. So we wanted to spend time on this because we knew there were so many benefits. Each of these different sidebars were on local code implementations. So if we could harmonize this, there would be greater developer efficiency. These customizations wouldn't be maintained differently around the business. We could also unlock the adoption of our design system, which is a key to getting updated topography, icons, colors, aspects that were refreshed with our brand refresh that came out. And also this would just support scalability as we grew. We could no longer fit enough things in the menu without having the redesign. But unfortunately, this was going to be quite difficult. With all the teams working in these autonomous silos, the team structures and goals, incentives, they were actually all wired to take people in a different direction. They were wired for product revenue, for individual products, which was driven by new features, which meant nobody really had time to work with us on this shared initiative. And the heads of product were like, why would we prioritize this? It's not going to have any gains for us financially other than kind of looking nice. And to be fair, at the end of the year, people's incentives were really based on, the money that they got in their bank account at the end of the year was whether they met these metrics based on the org structure. So it was really, kind of far down their priority list. So how would we overcome this? Well, there was a couple of things that changed for us, luckily. First was the post-COVID tech sector dip. You'll remember there was lots of people after COVID where the market kind of turned and lots of layoffs. Everyone was looking for ways to increase revenue. And in that time at Atlassian, there was an initiative prioritized that said, let's increase cross-flow between products. And we believe that redesigning the navigation was a way to do this. It would make it easier for users to switch between their project work in one product. So for example, you could switch between a Jira Service Management project to a Jira Software one. And our hypothesis was that then usage and licenses would increase if people could cross-flow easily. The second big change was that our company strategy changed. We needed to re-architect our products so that they were a coherent suite rather than point solutions. So again, the global navigation would be an answer for this. So we were off, and despite these challenges, we went into this wide-eyed and excited, but it was really one of the hardest design challenges at Atlassian. It was redesigning it for the entire portfolio. So the products needed to be leveled up. They needed to work better together. We needed to have that consistency, that coherence. And in order to be able to do this and create the pattern that was beyond just UI foundations, Rich is going to now take you through some of the details.
Thanks, Tarra. Okay, so what is a pattern? So often we associate patterns as kind of solving problems at a UI level, but they really start at the level of intent. So what is the specific intention of the user? What are they trying to do but can't do? When looking at the navigation, we needed to uncover this intent. So the pattern to solve this problem might be a manifestation of that might be a flyout or a jump menu that lists the most relevant items for the user in a flyout panel. So this platform pattern becomes a solution to these problems at scale. Then when it comes to product-specific needs and nuances, they're either built into the pattern at the platform level or at a local product level. So here you can see the platform pattern applied to an individual product scenario. But what we have learned is that a lot of the success in a good design pattern is the cultural and intangible elements, such as change management, pattern education, auditing, and cross-product pattern sparring. So culturally, patterns and ways of working already exist in an organization and are hard to change. So it takes time to unlearn and relearn new patterns and new ways of working. I think at Atlassian, it took, maybe this is correct, Tarra, it took like a year to get the design org on board with the new design, with the new navigation pattern. So in terms of parts of a pattern, I'll quickly run through the main parts of each of our, using one of our patterns as an example in the system. So ranging from things like customer facing things to internal things. So the main one we associate the pattern with is, of course, the individual Figma component, which is a part of the navigation library. But then you have things like developer documentation, coded examples, which, especially based on the design specs, we built out coded scenarios in React, and you could interact with them and see them kind of in action. Online documentation for makers was extremely important. And also kind of weekly sparring and help sessions for makers in teams. Maker feedback, we found out, was super important to understand what makers were struggling with. So during the initial stages, we actually did interviews with makers to get their thoughts early on about the usability of the system. Internal updates and comms, which is something we hadn't planned so much for, was like, it's especially good to have a plan for, but when you're making big library updates that affect a lot of teams, when you've got 83 teams using a pattern, you kind of don't want to make too many breaking changes. Customer comms or communications were very important for handling sort of change management for our customers as well. And lastly, user testing for the patterns we created was something we did early and continue to do as we build more. An important output we wanted to achieve for our pattern development were simple yet powerful components that would enable or empower rather than restrict teams in designing product experiences. So through a process of auditing and consolidating individual product needs, we managed to simplify our base components to just 3 main components, which we then used as building blocks in solving our broader interaction challenges. So if you take the menu button, for example, it's just a simple button which served as a link to a predictable link to pages. Then you have the flyout menu, which served as a way to get to deeper level items quicker. And then an expandable menu, which supported deeper level nesting without having to shift contacts within a workflow. So by consolidating and simplifying in this way, it helped to replace a lot of bespoke stuff and provided a set of elements that were both simple and powerful. Once we had the foundations created, we then composed these elements into different scenarios that became part of our pattern. So if you think of these as like the parts of a component in a vehicle, the parts could be the individual elements in a brake system, and the brake system itself is a composition of these elements, which is a pattern. So this created the foundations for product to apply them to their own needs, kind of like a toolbox of customizable patterns. So while our team created the platform options, product teams needed at the shell component level, they could also just focus on the content within these super components. So this meant things that like accessibility, resizing behaviors were consistent, not just in design, but consistent and reusable in code too. So these super components then became part of the broader layout component comprising of side navigation, top navigation, and other components within design system like panels and page tabs. By auditing and consolidating individual product needs early on, the process for products to adopt and apply the pattern was a relatively quick and painless experience. So here you can see kind of a zoomed out look at the main parts of our global navigation pattern. And this is like consistency felt at scale. So it was important for us that familiarity was kind of felt across products, and it had to look like one designer had designed everything. Now, Tarra will talk a little bit about who the pattern is for.
So generally when we think of a pattern, primarily we think of those end users, of course. But if you zoom out, it's really important to kind of step away from how you normally work to really be thinking about also designers and engineers. They are just as important when you think about how you create your pattern. So first, for designers, the benefits for them and why you need to design for them, they want simple and easy to use pattern guidance on how to apply it locally. And they love it because they don't have to reinvent the wheel, and they've got these really simple components that cover, a really wide majority of the use cases. But of course, when we're converging a lot of those custom experiences, we have to say why this is better. So our usability has to be really strong. And at Atlassian, we use a single ease question, the SEQ metric, and the score for any of these patterns has to be above 5.5 out of 7 in order to meet our bar of it being considered good enough. So we rigorously test these patterns with users to make sure that we're solving that original problem, and indeed it's a very, very usable experience. Then, of course, for users, they get that cohesive and consistent experience. And that really matters for us, particularly at Atlassian. We are going after a larger customer base. We're really trying to nail enterprise users or really large customers. And we want them to kind of step away from just traditionally, IT workers using Jira. And we want Atlassian, to be used by people in marketing, HR, legal, sales. We want them all to use our products. So we want to make sure that the way that they use our product, the way it looks, the interaction, how it behaves, that's all really predictable across Atlassian, so we can have a single company using the products everywhere. And also those patterns play a huge role making, the products predictable and understanding them even before using them. They've got that muscle memory and they've got an expectation how it will work. And lastly, for engineers, so they don't want to keep rebuilding the same thing over and over again, which you can't blame them. And with that pattern, they can make an update in one place and it lights up everywhere. So when you've got a platform solution, that return on investment is massive. And it was super easy to sell the business case for the pattern because engineers were like, yeah, why would we want to have dozens of local implementations when we can have it in one place? They also told us it's way easier to deploy fixes when you're building. And if you're building on design system primitives, there's a bunch of stuff you get out of the box. You get responsiveness and accessibility, for example. So a lot of big wins for engineers as well. So one thing in design, which is always important, which is to talk about your impact. And especially now it's kind of the performance season at Atlassian. Everyone's reminding themselves they need to keep their receipts. We also need to do that for design patterns. So how do we know and what kind of data can we gather to know we're doing a good job? Well, we've been looking since the inception around February. We've seen that by looking at the stats, about 83 teams are using the navigation library. It has 80 components in it. And with these stats, for example, we see over the last 30 days, we've had less than 1% detachment rate for the expandable menu component, and it has 55,000 inserts. So that tells us we've got a really remarkable result. It means people are using the component as is. They aren't detaching from it in order to customize it and kind of make it their own. And we think that's because we had really high collaboration with all of these different teams to meet their requirements, to explain how the pattern worked and kind of agree on a direction. And we spent a huge amount of effort on making, how-to videos and creating an interactive source file so they could just find the pattern, use it very easily. So ultimately, this metric's really, really important because people understood what the pattern is trying to achieve and why it's really important to stick to it. So now Rich is going to jump into Figma as well and see how you can improve your design patterns.
Thanks. Yeah, so as Tarra was saying as well, the Figma insights are actually a really good way to see where you can improve your design patterns. So, for example, Figma usage insights helped us guide how we improved our pattern for makers. And as Tarra mentioned as well, for example, you can see the base components were hardly getting detached, so a less than 1% detachment rate. But when it came to some of the list components, we saw quite a high rate of detachment. So there was like a 30% rate of detachment. We kind of used that to adjust how we built those particular patterns. So we knew that makers needed an easier way to customize their own content. And we adopted more the placeholder technique with preferred values and instructions on referencing local components to swap out placeholders. So this way, makers didn't need to detach because they had full flexibility with content, but still remained the component updates seamlessly as the system updated over time. So for example, like responsive functionality, scroll bars, accessibility, all worked even though the content inside the flyouts could change significantly. So let's show you kind of how we use Figma to strengthen the use of our patterns and enable our makers to build better and more consistent products. So Figma variables, which we hadn't sort of used before, which were really cool to play with, were used to create the global indentation system. So we created levels as kind of spaces for indenting menu items in a page tree. This meant we could stress test different indentation values easily and with users. And it also meant that changes to the indentation system could be done in one place and didn't make breaking changes for our users when we published library updates. So we could update the system entirely and makers would receive these updates probably without noticing it or without needing to change anything on their side. This made it super easy for makers to apply styling at any level and any object in the menu page tree. So this example shows you how such a small detail around indentation could dramatically improve the usability of a product like Confluence. So you can see truncation is a lot less when we adjusted the indentation values. Another thing we did with variables in Figma was we built responsiveness into the components themselves. So the maker only needed to create one design, and then we could see how that looked at every screen resolution. So we did this using size variants with min and max values on the component, and then applied these variants as size variables, which the maker could access in variable mode under appearance. One thing we're trying to encourage more at Atlassian design is getting to building a system of systems approach. So because we can centralize those key elements of a system like type, spacing, and color tokens, but also templates and primitive base components that can be leveraged by lower level systems. So this speeds up efficiency and enables greater consistency across the board. So because we're able to leverage the design system tokens, this made switching between light mode and dark mode as easy as kind of one click. So we could do this easily at the kind of the single object level or at a page or document level. And it meant we could leverage parts of the design system that were already accessible, already tested, and saving us time while maintaining quality in our components. This was the same for typography tokens. So as we transitioned to the new brand, which filtered down into our UI, we needed a way to test this visually in the UI before releasing it to our customers. So being able to swap out type modes with just a one click for an entire page layout made this really easy for our makers as well. And again, like using color tokens set up in the Atlassian design system meant that makers didn't have to remember specific color values. So color.background.accent.red, for example. So all they had to remember was just the state associated with them, which made the building of the different component states very easy. So makers could literally just select the state they wanted to be displayed at the component level, and the correct color would be applied to all the subcomponents automatically. So like the type and all the icons. So as you can see here in this example, the selected color states are pre-built into the component itself. Something that also came in very handy was leveraging the Figma plugins that we had already built into the Atlassian core design system. The plugins meant that we could really quickly scan components and check design token adoption. So for things like spacing, color, and typography, meaning we're able to build every component with the correct token DNA from the start. We tried something else which was pretty cool, where you like 1 minute maker videos, because we wanted makers to do their best work. So one thing we tested out was these kind of super fast instructional videos. Using Atlassian's own product, Loom, we could embed them into the Figma library right there in the file. And it was a good, effective way to get makers to quickly understand how to build with complex components and all their configurable options. Now, because these components were quite powerful and had to accommodate for multiple needs, some of them had a lot of configurable options. And to make this easier for makers, we really thought about things like how we sort of designed the configurable options within our component variants. So things like showing slot content for the flyout directly underneath the is open toggle button when it is toggled on. So on the left side of the component property setup box, you can see that it opens directly underneath it because we have the correct order, which is on the right, with an arrow symbol also set up in the right side image so that it shows you kind of what type of option this is. One thing that we kind of considered as a principle that guided a little bit of our work, pattern work, was we wanted to strike a good balance between being opinionated and flexible when it comes to constructing larger components from our core components. So we focused instead on leaning more toward maker autonomy with guidelines rather than over-indexing on dependence. So you can see from this example that we decided not to create a shell component with a collapsed and expanded state for the expandable menu items. Instead, we built the content blocks, kind of like Lego bricks, and used sticker sheets instead to show the content in different product contexts. This meant a bit more work for the maker, but they aren't dependent on the system predefining content for them, which is something we believe should be done by product teams specific to their own product needs. One of the trickiest tasks in building complex pattern is guiding makers on how it all fits together and where all the bits live. So we created a visual wayfinding system as the actual Figma cover. This meant that makers could see the component and where it fits within the system and then access a link from the cover itself to the individual component, which is on a page. And its documentation and design specs were all there, all in one single file. So while we took a deep dive into how to build the pattern and looked at lots of details, if I were to share my kind of our top 3 tips to take your design pattern from zero to hero, they would be kind of firstly getting engineering on board early. They need to be there at the start, not just when you're sort of looking at feasibility. The reason being, engineering can really help with sort of modeling the right structure for your pattern components and getting things like your naming of components correct as well. I think second thing would be designing for detachment. It will happen, so catering for that and building that into your process is important. So planning what should be detached, what's best as kind of composed sticker sheets, so not components, and what should never be detached. And lastly, I think it's not only about end users. So thinking about the maker teams and engineering as the groups who are solving for when designing a pattern. Think about the experience of the maker from start to finish as they endeavor to use your patterns. So thinking about the future, we've got a long way to go. We've come a long way, but we've also got a long way to go. And the first thing I would say, a lot of our focus has been on onboarding and selling the new navigation pattern, especially internally to teams, product teams. And now as we've defined the patterns and have products on board, our focus has shifted to self-serve material for product teams and supporting evolution of the navigation pattern itself, leveraging more platform capabilities like connected cross-app data and AI. A good example of this from one of our visionary principal product designers, Brona, was to show how we are planning on leveraging more of Rovo and AI to contextualize work better and suggest more relevant content for our users. Also, another thing we're doing is we're looking at how we can use the navigation pattern itself and the components and assets to kind of fuel AI prototyping work. So we've been playing around with different AI prototyping tools and doing a little bit more of that now at Atlassian. So you can check out some of the cool examples our principal designer, again, Brona, has been playing with to help us realize this vision. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for your attention while we nerded out on patterns. we hope it was useful in some way to you, and we'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions or anything on anything we shared today.
Yeah, thank you, Tarra, Richard. That was amazing. I have 1,000 questions, but again, I will let people ask their own. So now it's, as Richard says, time for some Q&A with Tarra and Richard. So we will kick off the question you have submitted, starting with the most upvoted ones. I saw that Tarra already replied some of them, but I'm going to ask the most upvoted anyway. So we're going to go through those questions, and anyone can hear the answer. So now just be aware, we may not go through all of them. So if there is something you really want to answer, make sure to give it an upvote. So we will make sure to answer now. And yes, as I shared before, the best question will get a prize. So let's open up to, let me stop the sharing now. Now how it's going to work is the camera will go on the person answering the question, so you guys can get a full view of our speaker. And let's start with the question asked by Jack. Can you please unpack the 5.5 usability metrics?
Yeah. Can we take that one?
Sure, Rich. I put in the text in the chat as well, like just the standard answer, but you can give it some life.
Yeah. So it's basically SEQ stands for single ease question, and it's a measurement from 1 to 7. It's a scale on how easy a task was to do. And so what we do is we often will benchmark this against an existing task and then an improvement on that task, and then measure the difference. And then we'll ask them a question at the end of the task on a scale of 1 to 7, how easy was that task to do? And that kind of gives us, we have a benchmark of 5.5 that we kind of want to keep above, and it just gives us a good indication of comparison on whether we're actually improving something or hopefully not making it worse.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, a couple of years ago, we moved away from our previous metric that we used kind of for everything was what we called CSAT, customer satisfaction. And we stepped away from that because it was a composite metric where so many things like brand perception and visual appeal, as well as their ability to do the task, all kind of fed in. And so people were basically just being like, do I like the product or not? When you were really trying to test something more specific. So we moved to single ease question, and that's been way more successful for us understanding really at a much more granular level whether we've made a difference and really moved the needle.
Thank you. Let's go to the next one. So we're going to cover more questions. So what were some of the most effective ways you handle the cultural change and internal adoption of new design systems? This is asked by Kate GT.
Yeah, I think the cultural one was tough. I think designers are really good at being very, very collaborative. And what we're actually not really good at is when there is disagreement. So what I had observed in the beginning when we had sparring is we would get all these lead designers together and say, hey, what do you guys all think? And a disagreement would come up and everyone would just look down and get quiet. And we couldn't actually push through that to kind of get to decisions. So culturally saying, I really had to play bad cop and facilitate and say, we have to make a decision here, a working assumption, rather than just being like, we need more research, we need more questions, I don't know, let's think about it some more. We really had to be like, no, we actually really need to get pointy here in order to make progress. That culturally was very, very hard. And I think the other big cultural factor was each product wanted to, had its own roadmap, do its own thing. We definitely I had to really use our executive sponsor to get some of the bigger products on board and align everyone. But the one thing I think that helped us is that we had a principle, me and the PM, of being really firm on our belief, being flexible in how we got there. So we had a firm belief that everyone needed to have the baseline experience. They couldn't cut corners. But if, for example, they took longer to get there, or they needed a bit of extra help to get there, or we had to give them, for example, a variant so that they could get on the pattern but still have a little bit of flexibility, we were willing to make those in order to get everyone in the same direction.
I think as well, it takes time, be patient, because teams do, as Tarra mentioned, they do have these things on their roadmap, they've got visions, they've got all this stuff, and it takes time to kind of evolve.
We all been there. Conflicting priorities. Next question from Tom W. How do you manage the need for consistency while still avoiding each platform to have their own identity? Well, sorry, it's not avoid, still allowing each platform to have their own identity.
Yeah, the pattern is not ultimate consistency. Everything needs to feel like it's designed by one hand, but you actually have to have really good judgment on when they can apply it in a different way or when you would allow a variant. So if you were to ask us today, we would say everyone needs to be consistent. But while we were designing the pattern a couple years ago, there was no way we could get everyone on to a single pattern. We had, politically teams that wanted to not join a pattern from another product or say, I'm still a snowflake and I want my own example. So we had to create some of those variants to get them on board. And as we culturally move forward, we can now actually come back to some of those decisions and then move forward and increase the consistency. But you have to take those small steps and know how far can you push teams and how big of a change is it for not only your end users, but also for the teams. We couldn't go straight to our future state. It was just not possible.
Next question from Jenny C. I feel that this somehow already been answered between all the other one we have already gone through, but she asks, curious, how do you communicate and coordinate such a big change across all your teams? And did you run into any difficulties during the development?
Yeah, totally. I think with communication, you have to assume that people don't speak to their squad members or their managers or their colleagues and that they don't read stuff. If you assume that, you'll be good. So we set up, times for them to come to sparring with us, and our program manager, she was awesome. She set up something called an alignment ritual, which was like 30 minutes. Everyone on the program had to dial in cross-functionally, everyone. And if they weren't there, she'd be like, hey, we're waiting for you before we start. And at first people were like, oh, I don't want to go to another meeting. I don't need to be there. I don't need to be aligned. But as we got rolling, everyone was like, oh my God, this meeting is the most important thing that is like holding us all together. And it is whenever you have this high complexity, high ambiguity, or high stress, you need to just get in a room. And for us, that was a virtual room. So we had that alignment ritual first thing in the morning and also at the end of day, because we were in everywhere from Amsterdam to Austin on the program. So we had a bit of overlap, and we would cross-pollinate, but we had to create those conditions for success and create that connective tissue. And the last thing I would say is not every stakeholder group is the same. We definitely had to give one product team some white glove treatment. And you might kind of go, well, why should I have to do that? You all get the same communications and structure and all that. But that's just not how it works in reality. So we really had to lean into some groups, and others were like super easy and chill, and some just needed a lot more love to kind of go with us on the journey.
Thank you, Tarra. And I do agree with you. People do not read documentation. 2 more questions, and then we wrap up with the question. So one from Radha. How do you know when a pattern is mature enough to be added into the official design system?
That's a good one. The definition of it is kind of like if it's being used it's needed by multiple product teams, I guess. Then it becomes like a platformed kind of pattern. We worked very closely with ADS to kind of take on their structure as well, which really helped us sort of compose these patterns with all the documentation, all the components set up to make it much more easily to kind of just slide in to ADS. So that was a real benefit, just working from them from the start.
I can remember the head of design for our design system, Atlassian design system. She was like, we're not touching it unless it's been proven out in the products. So you guys try it, you test it, you validate it, and when it's good, then you can contribute it back to us. To say like, we've got so many foundations, we're doing a brand refresh, we've got to make sure everything's super robust. We also publish our design system externally, so their workload is like massive. So if you guys want to do this, cool, we want you to fund it, do it, make it work for you, and then bring it back to us. So the pattern only became a pattern. We started with Jira Family, which is 4 products, and we convinced Confluence and a few others to come along, and now it's on like full swing, and we're still adding, another dozen or so products to that now. So it's fully fledged. But as Rich said, we have local UI kits, which is just for a single product or experience. Then we have patterns, which sit across multiple, and then you have that design system that kind of surfaces everywhere. And only once it's proven can you say it's actually a pattern? It's not just one team uplifting an experience and thinking it's a pattern.
Thank you. Okay, last one. Anna, what does contribution and raising requests look like on those patterns? How do you enable triage and manage those?
What do you mean by contribution? Oh, does contribution and raising requests look like? Like contribution, code contribution?
Anna, if you can quickly type in the chat what you mean with it, we will try to answer the question.
Sure. Maybe I'll just start while she's doing that to say, like, when people have, for example, requirements, we would kind of spread out and be like, hey, everyone, we're going to be looking at settings and we're going to do a sprint the next 2 weeks, and we would let them know and we would invite them to sparring and we would propose a design and wait for feedback. And then if people came to us a month later, we're like, oh yeah, remember that settings thing? We'd be like, no, we said we were going to look at this topic. We did a big call out. We tried to catch a really, cast a wide net while we were going through it and lock down those decisions and get everyone involved, so we didn't have to keep reopening it. So if it's from a requirement understanding, that would be my answer. But maybe there's a bit
Anna say yes, code and design.
Yeah. And code contribution, so we had our design system team actually embedded with our program team. So we had 2 product designers and an engineering manager and engineers from our design system team working with us, so that when we had product teams contributing code, they were telling them like how to do it properly and what they need to think about. And I think what the design system team really taught us, and I'm actually channeling Rich, who was like, they always challenge us about scalability and about accessibility, which is exactly their job. And that's fantastic because we're like, no, we want to make the visual design super polished. And they're like, that's not accessible. And so that was really great for, telling us how to set it up and making sure we were really looking after the right things.
I think just parity as well with code and the pattern, in Figma is really important as well. And sometimes it's really frustrating because you kind of, you want to build this thing, or you've designed this awesome thing, but you can't really put it in the pattern library because it's not in code. So it's a real push to get that parity. Really helps to kind of just make that pattern, I guess, legitimate across everywhere. And yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to stop now with the Q&A. I was just going to make a joke. I was wondering if it was Simon the one from the accessibility team to be hard on you on this pattern, but no.
Does Simon look like the bad cop? No,
he never looks like
Never.
Okay, let's choose a winner. Richard, Tarra, you got to choose who asked the best question. Something that resonates with you, whatever that was that makes you, nominate this winner. You can see the question you have answered inside the Q&A. Just filter them as the most voted, and you will see the one in green are the one you have answered.
Okay.
And then the person that win will let me know if you would like to join live, like for 30 seconds, just to introduce yourself. Otherwise, that's okay. You don't have to turn your camera on. I just need a quick message to know if you would like me to enable your camera.
Sure. Rich, do you want to pick one or should I?
I really like, just because it's the difficult part of all of this. Like, making the stuff is it's not that hard. Like, it's hard, but it's all the intangible stuff. So I think the one from Cat G where.
Yes, that one. Yes.
Cat G is the winner. So please send me a quick message in the chat. Let me know if I can turn your camera on. Otherwise, you don't have to.
It's the cultural change that's super hard. Tech is easy. People are hard. That is all what it's about.
Please say yes. Let's enable our camera. Okay, we enable you. You can turn camera and mic on. Quick introduction.
Hello. Yeah, tech is easy. People are hard. Thank you so much. I'm Kat. I live in Perth. I'm a product designer. This is my first Figma community event thing, so this has been really nice. It's been a great day full of talks, and yeah, thank you both. This was a really, really excellent talk. Not only to see like how you stepped through the technical process and the internal adoption. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Kat, and please make sure you're following Simon in Perth. and maybe meet him in person. He's the Friends of Figma leader for Perth. Now, please contact me after the event, even tomorrow, no rush, and I will share with you how to redeem this card. Practically it's $50 to spend on a Figma store. I will give you a code, and then you can go from there. Next. So what's coming next? We have Leading Without a Title Influence Initiative and Design Role, hosted by Friends of Figma Melbourne. So if you're keen to join, just scan the QR code on the screen. You will lead to our website. Once you're there, click on the agenda and register for any session you would like to follow. Each session has a separate link, so you will have to register for each of them. This will allow us to not overlap each other, to not run over. Like if we do run over, we are not affecting Melbourne. So that's why we decided to do this way. And don't worry if you miss the session, it will always be recorded. We will publish maybe next week. I saw someone asking where it will be possible to find those sessions. So we will have a YouTube channel with all of them, and then we will advertise on social media, on the website that you're currently used to register. You will also find those video. So there's going to be multiple entry. I'm sure you will find it out. Otherwise, just save the website as your favorite on your browser, and you will, come back next week and check if they're live. What else? Oh, yes, please, before we wrap up, we will really love your feedback. This event is made by the community, for the community, and your voice helps us shape an even better experience for next year. So just scan the QR code, leave us a feedback, and FYI, is the same QR code for every session you are going to attend. So if, for example, you are leaving a comment right now, and in 2-3 session time you would like to change one of your response, you can still do it. We have enabled edit to this feedback form, so you are able to edit your answer as you go through the event. And this slide is one of my favorite. It showed the incredible lineup of chapters that we have come together to make this event happen. So it's a powerful reminder. I can't talk anymore at the end of the day. Powerful reminder that the best things don't happen in isolation. A real impact comes from people showing up, sharing, and build things together. So nothing great is made alone. So thanks again for joining the World Tour. Big shout out to our amazing speaker, Tarra and Richard, and to all of you for being part of this session. And I hope to see you in the next one.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.